Yeah, welcome back, all participants. We are ready to start with our second session for the day. And that will be on writing compact cases. And to take us through this session will be Professor Dr. Abhinav Singh, who's also an editor at Emerald Emerging Market Case Studies. This had been director at CPIMR. So I'll request Dr. Abhinav Singh to kindly take the microphone and start the session. Thank you, sir.
So thank you, Subhashish, and a very good morning still. It's 11:57 to all the participants of the workshop. I think we had a wonderful session taken by Dr. Shalini, and I think she made a lot of things clear as far as what a good case or a teaching note should be all about. And I think that makes my job pretty easy here because I don't have to get into the details of a good teaching case or a good teaching note. So if I may request the team to probably share the presentation so we can have a we can probably begin with the session here. Okay, so yeah, is it visible? I can see it. Can all the participants see it?
Yes, sir.
It is visible.
Okay, so yeah, so the session will focus on writing compact cases. Okay, yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we talk about what a compact case is, there are certain issues which need to be acknowledged or understood by all of us here. Okay, so research findings and anecdotal evidence, they suggest that the students today, especially the B school students, seem to be reading lesser and less. Okay, and as faculty members who teach cases or case writers, we are compelled to address these issues to improve the student learning and the learning outcomes. It has also been found that B school students despise reading textbooks and ebooks covering content with academic information. So it's fair to assume that today's students, they don't have time or energy for long drawn out cases. Okay, and the lack of student preparation is a crushing blow to anybody who probably wants to adopt the case method of learning. A few eminent professors who are into case writing and case research and teaching cases, they have rightly put that students today, they don't like the 25-page Harvard case anymore. They instead prefer the 8 pages or the 10 pages case. And if it is possible, they would love to have a 3 to 4 page case. What we are likely to see in the future is shorter and shorter cases. So it is possible that even your current cases, which probably run into 8 to 10 pages, may be further cut down to 3 to 4 pages or 3 to 5 pages. Another professor also remarked that cases don't have to be so long. Some good cases are only 2 to 3 pages. Students may give more scrutiny to these brief cases, or they would pay more attention, or they may show more excitement for these cases instead of a typical 20-page case. Yeah, next slide. So now, if these issues are faced by all of us, then how do we go about addressing them? So I think the possible ways or the alternatives are as follows. We need to write crisper and shorter cases. We are talking of cases here. So your cases need to be more crisp. They need to be much shorter. So instead of the 8 to 10 pages cases, you are looking at probably further reducing them to say 3 to 4 pages or around 5 to 6 pages of case. You need to write it in a more relatable way, and they need to be extremely relevant. Okay. whether it is from the perspective of context or whether it is from the perspective of the protagonist, whether it is from the perspective of the timeline or the length, you need to make it more relatable and relevant to your audience. Okay. Number three, so if you probably want to write shorter cases or crisper cases, then they need to be more focused and they need to be more functional cases. Now, it is possible that while you address the problems or issues at an organizational level, you may be looking at several problems which would have their base from different functions, or it would be more generic or holistic. In this case, your problems or your issues, they need to be more focused. They need to be very specific in terms of marketing or finance or HR or people or consumers as applicable. In order to make it more engaging, because they should not lose the main or the prime objective of active learning. You can perhaps write quizzes and you can have discussion questions which are based on assignment in the teaching note itself, right? So these are probably the ways you could address the issues which we encounter today as faculties or case writers. Next slide, please. So now this comes to us trying to define or understand what a compact case is. And if you have probably Googled the word, then you would have come across maybe a cosmetic product with face powder or etc. etc. So this is not we are talking about. This is not what we are talking about. Here, a compact case is actually a teaching case, which is 1,000 words or lesser in length. It is designed to be read in 15 minutes or less, right? And they were essentially developed to overcome students' lack of preparation for case discussion. So it is possible that, while waiting in the lobby for the session to start, it is possible for the students or the participants to go through the case and be ready for the discussion in the class, right? These cases, yes, just like your typical cases or traditional cases or your current cases, these cases must be factual. They have to be based on real life data. Okay, whether they are primary or secondary, that's not a problem, but they need to be based on real life data, real life characters, okay, which is published and verifiable. And they're limited to 500 to 1,000 words. And if you're looking at single spaced pages, they would probably run into not more than 2 to 3 pages. Now, the goal of writing a compact case is to make them accessible, okay, readable, and more engaging to students. That remains one of the important objectives of actually designing and delivering a case through a compact form. And yes, unlike a typical case, the teaching note here would be much briefer, okay, and much shorter. Okay, I'll discuss that in the next slide. Yeah. So here we come to an interesting slide. So I don't differ to what Emerald says here or to what Dr. Shalini says here. The components or the elements of a compact case, they mirror the components or elements of a typical case or a normal teaching case, right? So you have an opening scenario, okay, which you also refer to as an opening hook to set the stage, the introduction paragraph. Then you have an industry background and a company background, okay, right, in the second para or the third para. Then you have a dedicated para on the protagonist, okay. Then you're looking at establishing or going into details or clarifying the context of the situation. And finally, you have a end para, which looks at a closing call to action, which is also known as the closing hook. So if you can see the slide here, what I have done, except for the first and the last components, the middle components have been represented in the red font. Can anyone tell me why I have done this? Any guesses here? आप जो एलिमेंट्स देख रहे हैं यहाँ पे, तो इसमें पहले और लास्ट कंपोनेंट्स जो हैं वो ब्लू में हैं और बीच के जो 3 है वो रेड में हैं. So can anyone tell me what and why? Why it is like this? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
sir,
are.
you are. So that's
Yes,
Okay.
you
So,
are.
primarily because maybe since we are trying to talk on a compact case, so these are the three things which are different from a normal case that we spoke in the morning. Is that the reason that it's in red?
okay. Yeah, that's a wonderful interpretation. Yeah. Anybody else who could probably clarify why they are in red and what it could mean for a compact case if you're comparing with a typical case or a traditional case?
So this will be heavily abridged, concise, precise.
Yes.
Right? Isn't
Yeah.
that?
Exactly. Right. So the point is when you are looking at the elements or the components of a compact case, they are very much similar to what probably you'll be doing in a traditional case. But the components which are in red are pretty much reduced or are abridged compared to a traditional case. Even the opening scenario and the closing call to action would be lesser in length compared to a traditional case. But these components in particular will be reduced or they'll be shorter compared to a traditional case so that you can probably target the size of a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 page case. So you have an opening scenario which gives the introduction the way Dr. Shalini also probably indicated and briefed it in the earlier session, right? It still needs to be slightly shorter than a traditional case. But when you're moving to the next component, which is the industry background or the company background, here the assumption is that the students are already aware about the industry. Okay, the company is pretty popular. Okay, so there is a reason for you to probably reduce the length here. So you need not go into the nitty-gritties or the details of the industry and the company when you're targeting a compact case. With the assumption that the industry is pretty well known, the company is pretty famous, okay? It could have been established by probably targeting an assignment before you do the case with the students. And here, of course, you would be mostly targeting the PG students. So the industry and company are fairly known, so you need to reduce the length. Then you move to the protagonist here. Interestingly, in this case, and I think you could relate it to what Dr. Kedar was probably asking to Dr. Shalini. So when you're talking of a compact case, and in a traditional case, you would be writing a para on the protagonist. Here, you have lesser words to probably sketch the protagonist, and it is also assumed that the protagonist is pretty popular or famous. So, if you're talking of Ratan Tata, or if you're talking of Elon Musk, or if you're talking of some famous Indian entrepreneur, you may not need to establish details in the case narrative. So you can pay less attention to the protagonist here. You don't need to use much words, and maybe you can shift the focus of the decision making opportunity for the organization. So instead of focusing on the protagonist here, you can probably talk about the decision making opportunity from the organization point of view. So you basically use the organization here instead of the protagonist, right? Then, unlike the detailed para on the context of the situation you would be doing in a traditional case, here you would have to probably go for a shorter narrative, okay, of the decisions and the emerging issues or the problems. And one of the ways you could probably counter this is, there are times when you probably are indicating details or you're indicating timelines or there's a lot of data and information which you're sharing in the narrative itself. These things can be converted into exhibits. So instead of probably writing paragraphs, you can probably go for visualizations, you can go for exhibits, you can go for charts, you can go for diagrams, okay, where you can probably cover all this information. And in the case of compact cases, if you probably are going for exhibits, they would not be counted as a part of your cases. So if you're looking at a 1,000-word case, then your exhibits will be excluded from it, right? And finally, of course, you're looking at a closing call to action or the closing hook, which again, compared to a normal traditional case, would be much shorter. Okay, right. Next slide, please. So the point is, if you're looking at the overall way to reduce the components, if you're looking at the overall strategy to reduce the elements of the case to make it compact, so you have a sharper case focus. It is a very specific topic. You're looking at a specific problem or you're looking at a specific issue. Okay, you have a laser focus on the issue or topic or dilemma or the challenge or the opportunity you would like to highlight from the case point of view, right? Yes, you write it in a very clear way, in a concise way. Okay, so your narrative is very compact, your narrative is very tight. Okay, and as I discussed earlier, you can develop creative and informative exhibits, right? You can go for visualizations, infographics, charts, timelines, and diagrams, and students love it. In fact, you can use tools like Canva to design your infographics or your exhibits, and students would love. It will be easy for them to probably capture the information or understand them or use it for their analysis and synthesis. So the three possible ways to reduce the components of the case to make it compact is to have a sharper focus by choosing a very specific topic or a subtopic, right? Write a very clear and concise narrative and develop creative and informative exhibits which can substitute your detailed narrative so that you can target your cases to be compact, right? Next slide. Yes, of course. So goes without saying. So if you're looking at a compact case, the teaching note would also be different from a normal traditional case. Okay. And again, if you've looked at the way I put it across, the fonts in red are indicating how they're different from a traditional case. So yes, your teaching note or your instructor manual should be having abbreviated abstract. It should have a keyword or keywords. Okay. It needs to indicate the level and the course you're targeting. Very important. The learning objectives based on Bloom's taxonomy. Here, compared to a traditional case where you may have 3 or 4 or 5 learning objectives, here usually you are looking at just 1 or 2 learning objectives. Again, you have discussion questions, right? Okay. In the case of a traditional case, you may probably have around 5 or 6 discussion questions. Here, you should usually not go for more than 2 or 3. Okay. The theory discussion is more tightly focused compared to a full-length case, although it may include the analysis and synthesis for the purpose of the instructor and the class participants. Okay. You have answers to the discussion questions like a normal teaching note, and there are teaching tips and activities. And Dr. Shalini talked about a lot of them. And it is generally followed by an epilogue or a postscript of what happened after that, in case if it is known, right? So there are certain areas of a compact case teaching note where you need to shorten the size. So you need to look at the learning objectives, which are probably 1 or 2. The questions need to be not more than 3. And your theory discussion has to be much tighter compared to a normal teaching note of a traditional case. Okay. And maybe this could probably be useful to you. So if you probably are writing a compact case, which is like 3 pages or 4 pages or 5 pages, then your target of a teaching note in terms of length should be probably 9 pages. It is 3 times longer than the case itself, right? Although there are no restrictions here, okay, as to what should be the length of a teaching note, even in the case of a compact case, but of course it needs to be around 3 times longer than the case itself, right? So till here, do we have any questions? I'm open to questions here. Yeah.
Abhinav sir.
Yeah,
Sir, I'm going to write a case for the first time. So the thought process that I had was about probably a traditional case only. So when you're saying a compact case is shorter and the protagonist is well known and the company is well known, that means a small company के ऊपर we cannot write a compact case. It has to be a well-known company. So can I infer that it can be only for a secondary data-based kind of a scenario that I can write a compact case? That's one thought. Yes, sir.
See, if you, I think it's something which probably is preferable, but it is not mandatory. So you heard what Dr. Shalini said, that they would prefer primary data cases, right? But 70% of the cases which are being received by them are secondary data cases.
Yes, sir.
So in a compact case, yes, I would prefer that the company or the industry or the protagonist is well known, so I don't need to go into details. But
Right.
look at it the other way. In case you don't want to overly focus on the entrepreneur or the protagonist, you can probably look at it from the perspective of the industry and company.
Perfect, sir.
So you can still write a compact case.
Right, sir. Industry
Right, you
focus.
get the point. And if you probably are teaching a course on entrepreneurship where the theory or the objectives or the learning outcomes are pretty clear, and you are choosing an industry which probably is a part of your course or is trending or is well known. Okay,
Right, sir.
so if you can probably do that, then again you can write a compact case. So you
Got
need not get into the details of the entrepreneur or the protagonist, even if he or she is not well known.
perfect, sir. Thank you so much.
Right now,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I hope I'm clear that, and we can have a counter argument because I have my colleagues and we have other experts on board. So it can be an open argument here.
No, my point was because I was thinking, as we discussed with Shalini ma'am, that two cases can be written out of the same topic. So I could write on the protagonist who,
Yeah.
as much as
So
I, yeah,
yes,
there,
but they should generally be differing in terms of timeline. So when I'm addressing a company like Yes Bank, so there was a time when Yes Bank was going through problems. Then there was a time when Yes Bank was going through some kind of refurbishing, or they were trying to re-strategize, or they were trying to restructure. And then suddenly you again look at the news. So Yes Bank is doing well. Okay. So in fact, if I look at a company like Yes Bank, I could have three cases written in three different timelines and with a connection. So I could be having a Yes Bank A, Yes Bank B, and Yes Bank C.
right.
You get the point?
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank
So
you.
you can always have sequels, and maybe the sequels will be received better. So see it that way. You
Perfect.
may not want to write the entire story in one case. You may not want to write all the issues in one case. So that again probably puts a case for writing a compact case. So you want to address a specific issue. So you
Right.
write the case from a specific issue point of view. So you write it in the form of a compact case. The sequel could probably be a traditional case or another compact case.
Got it, sir. Perfect.
Right now?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions till now? Anybody? Shall we
Nothing
move
from
to
my
the
side.
yeah? Shall we move to the next slide? Yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting diagram here. So I've taken it from a book which is labeled as the Ultimate Guide to Compact Cases. It is written by Rebecca. She happens to be the editor-in-chief of the case journal by Emerald. Okay, so very nicely, she has compared the traditional versus the short cases or the compact cases. So you may just go through it. And if in case you have any issues, we can probably just look at them. For example, uh, the case focus in traditional and short cases is pretty much the same. But yes, the difference is the short cases or the compact cases will have less integrative or comprehensive focus. Okay. Learning objectives in a traditional case could be ranging from 5 to 7. In the case of short cases, they would not be more than 3, right? Then the case length, of course, in a normal case, you're looking at greater than 8 pages of narrative, right? In a short or compact case, you're looking at 3 to 5 pages of case, which can be read in a break or can be prepared in 15 minutes time or lesser, right? And of course, the case elements or the case components, they're pretty much the same, but the background, the protagonist and the context sections are much, much shorter compared to a traditional case. And you have strategies to probably ensure that you can do that, right? So this is a wonderful way of probably looking at how you can compare traditional versus short cases. Any questions here? Okay. Can we move to the next slide, please? Fine. So, I guess all of us, rather most of us, would have already submitted their proposals, and so it may be a too late idea of sharing good ideas for short cases or compact cases, but you may reevaluate or you may look at how you can probably use it. Okay, so goes without saying. in order to probably look at good ideas for short cases or compact cases, there are some factors you need to consider. Okay, some criteria. So you're looking at the student learning. So does that idea relate to the key learning objective in your course, right? So you may be teaching a course on entrepreneurship, and you may want to probably focus on a micro venture and look at the stages of growth. So maybe the key learning objectives for your course could be met wonderfully well in the form of a compact case, right? Then you're looking at the student engagement. So will the students find the idea interesting, relevant, or engaging? So in case you choose a company, or you choose an industry, or you choose a protagonist which is well known, right? Which is relevant, okay, or which is current or trending. So would it actually engage the students? Would they really enjoy the entire process? Would they be excited about it? So as Dr. Shalini talked about Twitter and Elon Musk's. So if you probably plan to write a secondary data case, a compact case based on a specific problem or issue related to Twitter and Elon Musk, so you need not go into the nitty-gritties, and you can write a wonderful compact case that way. Then do you have an achievable case focus? So is the idea something that can be accomplished within a short case, right? So maybe if I have to address the restructuring of Air India, and I'm looking at how the Tata Group is undergoing the process of the transformation. So it is too difficult for me to probably accomplish the same in the form of a short case. I may probably have a number of cases targeted in the form of sequels like A, B, or C, uh, focusing or probably targeting the strategy aspect or the marketing aspect or the joint venture aspect or the restructuring aspect. But maybe as an idea, it could be difficult, or it could probably be not so practical to be accomplished within a short case. So I may not probably go for that kind of lead to be converted into a compact case. And yes, so essentially your case, your teaching case needs to sing, right? It needs to connect. It needs to be empathized. It needs to be role played, or it needs to be felt positively and in a very excited way by the participants. So does the idea have problems? Does it have different pieces or components? Does it include people? So you're looking at protagonists and important characters. And of course, does it lead to alternatives or options or choices or issues which would help you in good analysis and synthesis, right? That will result in the case that sinks. So a good compact case needs to sing. It needs to tick in the right corners when you're looking at the problems or the pieces or the people and the possibilities. So these are some good ideas which could probably be considered for short cases while you evaluate whether you want to write a short case or a compact case, right? So this is it. So the next slide. I think so. What will happen is that for those of you who probably are writing a case for the first time, so it is understandable. So eventually the workshop will allow us to probably give you feedback and have a one-to-one interaction or a one-to-one discussion. So for the benefit of all of you, we will be sharing you a sample traditional case and a sample compact case along with a teaching note. So both the cases have been written by the editor-in-chiefs of Emerald. Okay, one of them is of course written by Michael Goldman. Okay, which is a traditional case of 8 to 10 pages or more, and the second one is a compact case written by Rebecca. She is the editor-in-chief of the case journal. So we'll be mailing the cases and the teaching notes to you for your reference, which would probably help you in taking your proposal forward and identifying and completing the process of writing a good case. So any questions? Over to you, Subhashish.
Kedar, sir?
Yeah, we are open to questions, and I think the team is also open to any questions now. So.
Sir, I have another question in mind. May I?
Please,
Please,
please. We would
Yeah.
love to.
Sir, the company that I have in mind basically is a company which has 4 partners. However, when I was thinking, because I know one of them well, so I thought, he would be the protagonist. Does it make sense to focus on 4, or is it an incomplete picture when I only focus on one, or else I have to speak on all 4?
Uh, Subhashish, can I?
Yeah, please.
So I think so there are different ways to deal with this problem. So the one who is in constant touch with you from time to time,
Right, sir.
out of the 4, should be your protagonist. Or the one who probably is crucial to the company or the business outcome should be your protagonist, right? And the remaining ones can be characters. So it is always possible to have a protagonist. Hero तो एक ही होगा. Ensemble cast भी होता था एक जमाने में, अभी भी होता है, लेकिन अमर अकबर एंथनी में there were 3 protagonists, right?
Right, sir.
Right. So the point is you can focus on one person who's probably close to you in terms of discussion or interviewing or probably interaction. Okay. And the rest can probably be characters. You can mention them, but you need to probably write the case from a protagonist point of view. So one of them can probably play that role.
Thank you, sir. That makes my life easy. Thank you.
So you have one protagonist and the remaining are characters.
Characters.
So that's perfectly okay. Subhashish, koi counter view? Another option?
Absolutely not. This is what I've done for one of my cases also. There were 4 partners. एक को हीरो बनाया, बाकी 3 सपोर्टिंग कास्ट में थे. That works. और ये मॉडल ही था.
Perfect. Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any more questions? So there's just a word of caution here as far as compact cases are concerned. So they may work wonderfully well in the class. Your students would simply love it because they can complete reading the case and discuss within a very shorter span of time. Writing it is very, very difficult. Okay, so you need to be very, very clear. Okay, your topic needs to be extremely refined and specific. Okay, and it will always be a challenge for you to relate the case facts to the teaching note. So a good amount of efforts and clarity needs to be undertaken when you're writing a compact case. But it is possible. So I hope that helps, and that probably would give you an option in terms of writing the right case, right?
Okay, Dasar, I would request you to, in case there are no more further questions, to wind up the session, present a vote of thanks.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our second session as well as the end of our first day of the workshop. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Dr. Abhinav Singh for sharing his insights on how to write a good compact case. Very rightly said that considering that students are, their reading habits are changing. They do not like to read lengthy cases. So compact cases are becoming more and more relevant. And in that sense, the session would help all the participants in not only writing their current cases, but in future also if they plan to write compact cases, the session will be helpful. Thank you very much, sir. As sir said, we'll be sharing a sample case, traditional case as well as a compact case. We'll be sharing the copies through email, and we'll inform you about the upcoming stages of the workshop also. Thank you all for joining the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kedar. Thank you, Dr. Subhashish, and I thank all the participants. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.